Well, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Opcast, where I, your host, Beau Higgins, gets to talk to folks involved in the veteran hiring space about their journeys and what they're doing these days. And today I have the privilege and honor to be joined by Bre Cameron, someone I've known for quite some time that's been in the space for quite some time, and looking forward to getting to know you a little better today, Bre. So, Bre, you want to do a quick intro of yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Beau. Yes, I'm so excited to be here and partnering with Outline on this podcast. My name is Bre Cameron. I currently am the Veteran Program Manager at Amgen. I've been with Amgen a total of 6 years, and I've been in the biotech industry and doing veteran recruiting for a total of 8 years. Before that, I spent several years as a recruiter, not doing veteran recruiting, but just regular recruiting across a variety of industries. And then, before that, I was in the Navy. I was in the Navy from 2001 to 2006. And there was a gap after the military between separating from the military, going to college, doing all of that. And there was about a 5 year gap before I got into talent acquisition, where I had a really tough time trying to figure out where I fit. And so now I feel lucky that I get to use that experience along with my talent acquisition experience to help other veterans overcome a lot of those obstacles that I faced and what I now see other veterans facing even 20 years later while separating from the military.
Yeah, no, that's great. And it's, again, a common theme, obviously, for folks that are transitioning out. It is not easy. It takes a village, but there's a village out there. And we'll talk more about that as we go through. But I'd love to back up to the beginning to what was your kind of motivation to join the Navy? Kind of anybody that was a family? Was it just random? Saw the recruiter one day? And what was the impetus for you to join the Navy?
Right. So I think for me, I was in high school. My plan was I was an artsy kid. So my plan was that I was going to go to an art college, actually down here in Savannah, where I live now. And one of my high school friends, she had signed up for the Navy and she was in MEPS and was trying to recruit. I think you got points or something like that if you recruited some of your friends to come talk to the recruiter. So she brought me in to talk to the recruiter. And I did, and we met several times, and I kept telling him, no, I'm not going to do it. And then one day he said, he convinced me by telling me, we do have photographers in the Navy, and photography was a big passion of mine. My dad was a photographer, and I liked taking photos too. And he said, you could join the Navy, you could take photos, do something artistic, and then use that money, your college money, to go to college afterwards. And so, to me, 17 years old, that sounded amazing. So that's kind of what convinced me to go in. And I was from a small town, so the travel, the outfits were super cute in the Navy too. So that, 17-year-old me was taking all those things into consideration. But yeah, once I got in, 9/11 happened a few months later, which was scary. For at the time, was it 18 or 19-year-old? That was not what I was expecting. But I think it really changed my perspective on, yeah, just what the military is all about and what those individuals do and the sacrifices they make, and kind of being there for the beginning of that war and that everything that was going on. And so completely changed my perspective. I had a different attitude in the military after that. I think I was in A school when that happened. So the rest of my career was very much based on supporting, that war, during that time. So interesting time.
Yeah, no, definitely. I definitely got much more real than you probably expected to
Yeah.
be pretty fast, right? It's like, oh, I'm just taking camera, fixing pictures of the Navy, some ships,
Yeah.
some
So it's
planes.
so
And I'm
fun.
like, well, wait a minute, I might be going out to, to
Right.
deploy forward, right?
Yeah.
So, where were you stationed during your time in the Navy?
I was stationed in San Diego the whole time. I went to A school in the DC area, DINFOS, at Fort Meade, and then I was stationed on an aircraft carrier. I had a shore duty, and then my first ship was a, a destroyer. It took me a second to remember, but yeah. So I actually I got to bounce around a lot in the 5 years that I served, and I got to do a lot of different things. And so felt like a full career after those 5 years because of everything I got to see and do.
That's awesome. Any time with the Marine Corps, the amphib side of the house?
I wasn't on an amphib. The girl who convinced me to join, she also got stationed in San Diego, so She was on an amphib, she was on the Bellawood, and I got to do some like 1 day or 1 week trips on amphibs and other ships and do things like that. But no, I mean, we did, there were Marines. I did
Yeah,
get to
yeah.
work with the Marines a little bit here and there.
All good. As a Marine, I have to ask these questions. You understand how it is. It's all
Yeah,
good.
I
All
know.
good. Well, it sounds like, I mean, obviously you had a great operational run with the Navy, and but you kept your eye on the prize. It sounds like of going back to college on the back end of that time. Is that what you? I mean, you went straight from the. I mean, you kind of knew that you were going back to college right away. That was never
Right.
like wavered in your mind from where you're starting from what you went through. And, yeah, and use the GI Bill, I assume, to do it. I mean, was it pretty easy transition? Yeah, nice, nice.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, originally the plan was to become a professional photographer, which I was for a while. That's what I did consistently. That was the one thing. Luckily, the skills I had learned from the military, I was able to be a freelance photographer for 10 years after the military. Um, that was always my constant while I was working other part-time jobs, going to school, till I got a full-time job in recruiting, and then now I just do it for fun. So that's nice.
And what was your kind of pivot from the photography world to the HR side of things? Was it not enough work in the photography world, or was it something you really felt passionate about going into HR, or kind of how'd you kind of make that leap?
Yeah, that's such an interesting question. Um, to be honest, photography was after doing it for 10 years, 15, I guess, total. I was a photographer for 5 years in the Navy and then an extra 10 afterwards. Um, I think I just kind of got to the point where I felt like I had done everything I could possibly do at that point. My daughter was young. Being a freelance photographer, I was shooting a lot of weddings and portraits where that was a lot of weekends and evenings. And so I was looking for a job that was, the regular 9 to 5, weekends off, vacation days, all of that. So I started working part time in recruiting. I started out as an admin. Um, and mind you, this was in my late 20s, almost 30. And I was completely starting over in my career. And so, also while I was working part time, I went back to get my master's with the post 9/11 bill. And at that point, I thought, maybe I wanted to work in, I was going back to school to do psychology. And my plan was I wanted to be, to work with veterans with PTSD and other individuals. And although my journey didn't take me there. I still feel like that master's degree helped me. I still get to help veterans in a way. The psychology degree helped me with that level of emotional intelligence, to where I can work with veterans who are stressed out and worried about. It's a very scary time when you're separating after 5 years, after 20 years, probably even more so. So I just feel lucky that I everything I've done, I've kind of been able to put all into one basket and have this role that where I get to use all of those skills.
No, that's great. And I make the analogy all the time to your point of the psychological challenges of transition. It's hard. When I make the analogy to Shawshank Redemption, right? If you've ever seen that
Yeah.
movie, you can get institutionalized in the military, right? I don't care if you're 10, 15, it could be 5 years. You just know your place in the world in the military. Your rank matters. You know how to get things done too. If you need something, you know how to get it done. You know where you fit in. Your career progression is very straightforward too. You know what you have to do every day to be successful. And the real world is not like that at all. So I think it is scary for so many of our transitioning veterans to get out and make that leap. And I think understand that psychologically challenges that folks that were, not afraid to charge a machine gun nest, but they're afraid of like talking to people about network. Like they're afraid of things
Yeah.
that
Network.
it
Yeah.
seems hard, but like it's just like I don't do that. That's not what I do. I blow up things, whatever
Yeah.
it is. So it's amazing though to see the to help people overcome that and just kind of say, hey, look, thousands of us have done this before. You can do it too. Your peers have done it before. To give them that helping hand to make the leap from the military into the civilian sector is huge, and I think understanding that from a psychological perspective is a big piece of it, because it's easy to say, "Nah, you'll be fine," but it takes a little more than that, right? I mean, you need
Right.
a little bit of a push to kind of get out there. A lot of people get out of your comfort zone, especially if you've been in a long time. I think it's
Hmm.
if you've been in 20, 25, 30 years, and you've joined up when you were 17 or 18 years old. It's like, I don't know how to operate outside the prison walls.
Yeah. Right.
It's a big challenge for sure, for sure. Well, and how did what was the progression from for you on the HR side? Obviously, you started doing it part time, and then how did you get to, just kind of give us the synopsis of how you got to where you are today in the working world? Yeah.
Yeah, so I started out part-time in an administrative position, and after about 2 years, I was kind of had been waiting for them to tap me to be like, hey, okay, now we want to promote you to the next level. Mind you, this is my first corporate job. All my other jobs, I worked in restaurants, I worked as a bartender, I worked in web design, so it was for a very small firm. So it was my first corporate job. I didn't know how things worked. So I'm waiting for them to tap me. It's not happening. And then there was a day where I found out a girl that sat near me got promoted to recruiter. And I said something to one of my friends, and nothing against this girl. She was great, but I was just like, she hasn't, I've been here longer than her, and how come she got promoted before I did? And that person said, well, have you told your manager you want to be a recruiter? And I was like, no. And he's like, well, you gotta tell your manager what you want, where you want your career to go so they can help you. And I was like, what? I had no idea that that's how it worked. I was used to, like you said, you take tests and you get all these qualifications, and then or you can get capped. There's like different ways to get promoted in the military, but I didn't know how it worked in the corporate world. And so that's when I realized you really have to be in the driver's seat. Like, you have to make what you want in your career happen. So I did tell my manager I wanted to be a recruiter. Eventually, I became full time as a recruiter. I did that for about 5 years when they approached me about taking on to building a veteran program for Amgen. And I started out as a contractor, so Amgen was one of our clients. And I at first said no. I was like, no, I like what I'm doing. I don't want to start all over. I was trying to get another promotion, so I was afraid that would hold me back for a few more years of getting another promotion. Eventually, they convinced me, and about 6 months in to working for Amgen, that's when I realized, like I mentioned, I had a hard time when I got out of the military, and afterwards I never really felt like I fit anywhere. And I missed the military. I didn't want to go back in, but there were things I missed about the military. And I assumed it was the camaraderie of my friends or the structure, something like that. But it was 6 months into Amgen, working in the biotech industry, working in the job that I had. It was the purpose. That's what I had missed that whole time. And so I realized now I had purpose. I was helping veterans. It was helping me heal from that, awful experience I had transitioning all those years of rejection and not getting hired into the roles that I wanted. And then also working for a biotech company, which does such amazing things for people who are suffering from some awful diseases. So, across the board, it was the purpose. And I think that's why I've stayed where I've been since then, is because I realized this is where I belong. I finally found that feeling.
No, I mean, it's so relatable to me personally. I mean, I think it's, when I first got out of the Marine Corps, the first 2 years I was out, I worked for a company that actually manufactured and installed fiber optic cable. I mean, great company, great first job, but there was just something missing. Like, it's just like, it's fine, can I do it? Yeah, but and I call it the give back factor. And I think when you're in the military, you don't realize that every day, you don't think about waking up in the morning and like, I'm defending the country, right? It's just you're doing your job, but it has this other, piece of it where you're making a difference every day. You're doing something for the greater good that happens, and you're not even like, you don't, it's not even a conscious thing, but you know it in some level, you're doing something for the greater good. And then when that's gone, again, you don't necessarily, something's not there, and it takes you a while to think, what, why am I not satisfied here? What's the missing piece? And it is that. It's what I said. I call it the give back factor. And I obviously had the opportunity to do that at Amazon and what I'm doing now. But when you find it, it's like, okay, that's what it is. It's that way to give back or to feel like you're doing something more than yourself or bigger that you had in the military. And certainly you miss the camaraderie and you miss the other things too. But to me, it's that the give back factor is the hard, the intangible thing that people don't realize they're going to miss, and it takes a while to kind
Mhm.
of figure it out, right?
Right. Yeah. And that's why yeah, with this industry, and I think it's important for any job that you get after the military is to find something that you love to do. Um, because something that gives you that satisfaction of, like you said, giving back or having that higher sense of purpose or just being a part of something that's bigger than yourself. I think that's so important.
Well, for those that don't know, I know a little bit because we work with you at Opline
Yeah.
about Amgen. Tell us a little about what Amgen does, maybe what kind of veterans you hire there. Or just say, I'd love to talk about more about the company and what you're doing over there.
Yeah, so Amgen's a biotech company, like I mentioned. They've been around for over 40 years. We have 30 plus products. So how our products differ from pharmaceuticals, and mind you, I'm not a scientist, so it's hard for me to talk in the scientific way about what Amgen does. But I think for those who are not familiar with how does biotech differ from pharmaceutical, biotech, they're taking something that was living, like an organism, and creating a product that can help individuals overcome, cancer, or not overcome cancer, but like the ailments that they experience during cancer treatment and things like that. So we have oncology, immunology, inflammation. I'm trying to think what else. Rare disease. So we cover a lot of different disease states, and our products are injectables more than like in a pill form. And so when I first started, my manager would always say, if you haven't heard of Amgen, that's a good thing because we treat some of the world's, worst diseases. So consider yourself lucky. And I always thought that was kind of funny because I had never heard of Amgen before I started working for them either. And so, but yeah, we're a worldwide global company, over 22,000 employees. In the United States, I think we have 13 sites. We've added some recently. Our headquarters is in Thousand Oaks, California. And then we also have manufacturing sites in North Carolina and Ohio, Raleigh and Columbus areas. We have a capability center down in Tampa, Florida. We have our partner, we recently acquired Horizon for rare disease, and they had sites in Rockville, Maryland, and Deerfield, Illinois. We have a site in Kentucky, Louisville, like the Louisville area. What am I missing? Oh, we have a research and development lab in Massachusetts and also in San Francisco. And then we have another manufacturing lab that I forgot, in Rhode Island and Puerto Rico. So we're on, coast to coast, lots of remote positions. And I would say, as far as the roles that we hire, we see the most veterans in. Surprisingly, usually number one is sales reps. So that's not what we were expecting. We were expecting operations, and operations usually comes in second. I would say anymore, they're like neck and neck. One always wins year over year. In operations, I would say, supply chain, engineering, maintenance, manufacturing, those are areas that we see a lot of veterans. But really, we've hired veterans in every corner, nook, and cranny of the company. We've hired a few lawyers from the military, pilots. We have veterans in HR, research and development, just all over. Veterans can fit in anywhere. I would say, but where we see the most of them fit in is in operations type roles.
Got it. And I talk a lot when I talk to transitioning veterans. One of the things I focus on the most is culture and the culture of a company because, again, as you can certainly appreciate, having been around the space a long time, every company has a different culture. I mean, Amgen is different than Amazon is different than Boeing is different than J.P. Morgan. What would you say is, like if your appeal to veterans, what is Amgen's culture like, and what should they know about the culture there that makes it a good fit for veterans or the certain types of veterans?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think Amgen is probably a bit of a culture shock coming straight from the military. I have a really funny story about that actually with one of my hires. But I would say that the appeal is just the community and the flexibility that you have. And I think that's what a lot of individuals, when you're getting out, you're looking for is you go from having a lot of your choices made for you to being able to make a lot of your own choices, from receiving orders to being able to come up with the orders yourself. So I'd say Amgen is very creative and collaborative, and you get to work with all kinds of different groups, and everyone's working towards, serving our patients. That's our mission. It's so simple, just serving patients. And that's what everyone's goal is at the company. And I would say that every voice matters here too. So they, you know, say a disease like cancer can affect anybody. So hearing ideas from everyone on the team, um, having collaborative sessions. One of the things I would say as far as like benefits and perks that I think is really appealing is the time off. So you get 3 weeks of time off that you can use whenever you want. And then we have a summer shutdown that falls over the week of 4th of July. And we have a winter shutdown that falls over the week of Christmas and New Year's. And that's usually about a week and a half. And so, you're getting 5.5 weeks to spend with your family. Throughout the year. And the great thing about the shutdowns is that since everyone is out of the office, you don't get as many emails to come back
Yeah.
to as like when you take vacation. So that's nice. But I think, just the work-life balance, and they really want people to still, be able to feel comfortable like taking that time for their family and being able to have that flexibility. So we do really important work here, and I think the managers are really ready to help individuals be able to figure out what that balance is going to look like, so that the work gets done and it gets done on time and the patients get served, but also that they're not taking their work home, and that they're able to make it to those soccer games, or to those family events and things like that. So I can't say enough good things about the culture here. I love it. I would say our veteran employee network is one of my favorite things about our company culture. We have over 700 people in our employee resource group. Being able to work with that group and find, like knowing who to go to for certain things that you need. They really step in and help me with like our military fellowship program, with finding individuals roles. They love to give back. So, but it's really nice to, in our meetings when we can all joke and poke fun at the different branches and things like that. But yeah, I think it's a great culture. And that funny story that I was going to tell you, I was working with a senior chief from the Navy who wanted to go through our military fellowship program. And he was very much a senior chief. And it would crack me up when he'd email me, because he was always like, when can I expect an answer from you? He would check in with me almost daily. Like, has anyone gotten back to you on this? Where do we stand with this? With my like routing this or routing that. He was always checking in on me, and very much a senior chief. And I didn't mind, because I'm used to that, with the group that I work with. And the first time I met him, he was all buttoned up, and he was very like, professional. And after he started his fellowship, I think he'd been here about 3 weeks, and I was on site and had set up some time to have coffee with him. And he told me, "Oh, I'm already out there. I'm already sitting outside, and I'm looking around at all these tables at this little coffee shop on our campus, and I don't see him." And then he like waves his hand, and I look at him, and I was like, "Oh my gosh," because he had a little bit of stubble. He had his sunglasses on. He's like just lounging. His like buttons were undone on his shirt, and he was like, "Hey, how's it going?" He was so
Embracing culture.
chill. And it just cracked me up that he had the change I saw in like 3 weeks time of, I think once he realized like, oh, there's a sense of urgency, but it's not as urgent as like, in the military, and just kind of being able to relax and have fun at work and things like that. It was really cool to see. And that's one of my favorite transition stories of some of the things I've been able to witness in this
No,
role.
I love that. I love that. It speaks to the culture, right? That really speaks
Yeah.
volumes to the culture of really having a good work-life balance and allowing people to be themselves and to be comfortable and to take care of them. It's just which is huge, which is huge. And what would you say are the like a couple kind of questions here, kind of packaged together? If folks are interested in jobs at Amgen, what is the best way to engage for our veterans? And what's the way you found to be the best ways to find veteran talent from your side of the house as well?
Right, yeah, great question. So, for those who are interested in, finding a role at Amgen, I would say go to our career site and under inclusive hiring, you'll find a link to our veteran resources page. We have a lot of information on that page about our military fellowship program. We have a talent network that you can sign up for. That talent network is my own personal candidate pool that I draw from when I'm working on different projects with managers. And we also have my favorite new tool that we just recently implemented was Opline. So
Woohoo!
we have, for veterans, military spouses, and student veterans, you can go on there and plug in your information and find roles, live openings that align with your background based on the criteria that you submit through that survey. So that has become very handy. I send a lot of candidates I'm working with them like, check out this new tool, see what it pulls up for you. So that's been really helpful. And I would say, our military fellowship program for transitioning service members and military spouses, that's a really great route into the company. We, of course, partner with the Department of Defense Skill Bridge program, but also Hiring Our Heroes. And for those in North Carolina, we partner with NC Biotech, their MOVE program, which is an apprenticeship program. So I think being able to get those hands-on experience and that training prior to finding a role at Amgen, it works for everyone. It allows them to get that training and get up to speed before taking that full-time role. Also to be able to try out the company, see if this is the role that they would like, if this is the company they would like. But most importantly, it's great for hiring managers who probably have preconceived notions of what a veteran is and what they're going to be like when they start at the company. But every single manager who has hosted a fellow or an apprentice has come back to me to say, like, I cannot believe how quickly they picked this up, or I cannot believe how well they work under pressure. And so it's really helped to get the word out there about how great veteran employees are, and to not be shy of giving them a chance even if they don't have the industry experience. I would say for the, as far as finding veterans at this point, in the beginning it was tough because nobody had heard of Amgen. At this point, the program's been around for over 8 years, so they now come to us. But we do try to do a lot of local events. This year, our focus is on doing local events near the sites at some of the bases, and we partner with NBA Veterans Expo and the Service Academy Career Conferences, which I remember seeing you at those, Beau,
Yep.
and in your jacket. And but finding individuals at those career fairs. I also work with Work for Warriors and Vet Jobs and all kinds of different organizations. They'll send me candidates who are applying, and I try to advocate for them. So we have all different routes where our veterans come from and where we try to find veterans too. But I would say LinkedIn. You want to have a LinkedIn profile because that's probably the first thing that I'm going to check, that recruiters and hiring managers are going to check, is your LinkedIn profile. And that's where I do a lot of my sourcing as well.
Yeah, no, makes sense, and all great stuff for sure. And again, I think the challenge sometimes for the veterans is almost too many things you can do to
Yeah,
be out
there's so
there.
many
Trying to
options
figure out
now.
what works for you and how to neck that down to something that's effective. But it's great to hear too that Amgen now has a name in the veteran space, right? That you're not going out there trying to break, squelch, and get through it. That the word gets out there not only for the veterans, but I think more importantly, and I love your point about the fellowship program, that now the hiring managers want the veterans, right?
Hmm.
That's the thing, is that you have these great programs when you can show hey, look, you're going to have 3 months to try this guy out or gal out, and no, the price is right, free, and I guarantee you they're going to be a great fill long term, and it's just to get the buy-in from the non-veterans that are hiring managers is really, once you're there, you're established then, right? Because all the veterans know hiring veterans is great, but the hard part is getting those non-veterans that are in those leadership roles, that are the HR leaders, to get them on board. And once they can see it, and they see again, there's a cost benefit to it. There's a huge talent upside to it. I mean, it's a win-win type of program, but even with that, it can be hard to you still got to push it for a while to kind of get the momentum going. Once it gets started, though, you can see it just kind of start rolling downhill and picking up speed, which is just great. It's just great. I think that's one of the fun things about being in this space, right? Is that we're always happy to share best practices, always happy to share our time. Like not no company can hire everybody. I mean, Amazon hired a lot, but if it was so much fun to see other programs and other companies investing in their veteran hiring programs, because again, there's no downside to it, right? It's be a cost savings for your company. You're going to get better talent, and it helps our veterans, right? So I mean, it's all win-win. So I think everyone in this community is really good about again sharing the talent. It's not always true with other recruiters that maybe I need these tech guys. I need like in the village. It's like there's more of them. If I don't get that guy, I'm going to get somebody else. If I'm a good steward or a good player in this space, the word will get out there and the veterans will find you. And you have to build the reputation of your program to be someone that can be reliable and counted on and have a culture that's a good fit for the candidate too. But that is one of the most enjoyable parts, I think, of being in this space, is that people are just so happy to give back and share. And I learned a lot of lessons that I think we didn't do well. And I was happy, man, I tried to build a military spouse program, and dude, we failed miserably early on. But we learned from it, and this is what, don't do that, do this, So it's just that part of it is really nice. And I think just something that keeps you coming back for sure, right? Yeah, awesome. Well, on that note, we'll get ready to wrap up. It's been a pleasure talking with you today, Bree, and I love what you've built over at Amgen. I mean, you've built it. I mean, you're it over there, and to kind of be someone that came from outside the military space to get in there, to build it, to grow it, and to get something where you now have buy-in from your leadership. And continuing to grow it and bring more great veteran talent over there, and to be willing to share your time with others is super important, and something that I love to share this with the larger military recruiting and just recruiting community as a whole. So thank you again for the time today. I appreciate it. No, of course, and hope to see you out there on the circuit somewhere wearing a jacket again. When it's too hot to wear every day in Florida, but I got to get out there and do the best I can. All right, thanks again, Bree. Appreciate it.